everybody, and
Hello.
welcome to the Featherpodcast with Emily Ulfsdotter and
Michelle Blocher, and today we have actually an interview with Abby from Quackingrunners, and I met her through Instagram. She was one of the first duck accounts I started to follow. She also have three runner boys, and she also are a vet tech nurse, and she has a lot of interesting things to say. And I hope you really enjoy this interview. And if you have any questions for Abby, we would gladly take them to have her come back in the future for another interview.
yes, enjoy this one.
Enjoy.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have a rooster fight here in the background. Men killar!
Boys.
Emily, you can start and start.
Yeah, but we weren't doing the presentation. We were gonna edit it after, didn't we?
Yeah, but if because you had the questions.
I had the questions. Yes. So Abby, can you first tell us about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so I live in the UK. I'm kind of in the southeast and not too far from London. But I live like out in the suburbs, so I'm not in London. I'm outside of London, and I love that they're like chatty in the background. I'm a veterinary nurse, so I've been working as a veterinary nurse for a long time. So I've been qualified for 14 years, and I worked for another like 4 or 5 years before then, so like quite a long time now. And I work solely in exotics, which means like anything that's not cats and dogs. So that's birds, reptiles, small mammals, so like rabbits, guinea pigs, anything like that, really.
We need you in Sweden.
Yeah, so it's anything that's like that, and occasionally I get to see zoo things. So I'll get like a penguin or a like we've done sea turtle work and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. So we do get to see cool stuff every now and then. But yeah, that's what I do, and I work full time. It's quite a lot of working, so I don't get to spend as much time as I want at home.
Do you? Is your work in the same town or?
So it's in London, so I have to commute into London every day, and yeah, it's mad. I don't know why I do it, because I ride a motorbike in and out, and I'm like, it's madness. Yeah.
But I get it that you really like your work.
Yeah, I really love it. It's just hard.
Yeah, I've seen that you are a big advocate for that vet nurses or vet techs, like you call it, should get more appraised for their work, and I understand that.
I think a lot of the time the vets get a lot of attention, which is perfectly fine, because they do a lot of work and they diagnose and they have to deal with the owners more than me. But I think not everyone realizes there's vet nurses behind the scenes looking after the pets.
Yeah, like, without you guys, the vets can't really.
Yeah. So we kind of balance each other out. The vets are doing the main like diagnosing and treating, and we're kind of left to the animals to look after them like firsthand. So we're the ones who's in the kennel cleaning up all the poo and everything. Yeah. But yeah, we're also treating them and medicating them and doing all the like just basically looking after them all the time. So
that's so amazing. Here in Sweden, they at the moment have very short on vet nurses.
Yeah.
I talked to a veterinarian who said that it goes one vet nurse on, I think it was 5 or 6 veterinarians.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They're so short on people for that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bit of the profession's in a little bit of disarray at the minute, because we're not paid a lot, and a lot of there's a lot of just general public misconception about the cost of veterinary care, and we get a lot of abuse for it. So there are some really nice owners out there, but equally there's a lot of media coverage of it costs this much money to get my dog fixed, and I'm like, yeah, because we've got the NHS, people have no idea how much healthcare costs. So
yeah, we have the same issue here, and I can't out the company, but I guess you have the big company that starts with A in England also, but that they are going with so much profit, and that the vet bills should be lower because of that. But in the same time, I understand that the equipment is expensive, the salaries are expensive, and like that. But we are going to focus a bit on your boys also.
The boys.
So yeah, so let's present your boys and how you got started with a bachelor flock.
So I kind of have always liked ducks. I've never really had a time when I haven't liked them. And I think most people, like as children, you always just spend loads of time like seeing ducks and things. And I'm the kind of person at work who doesn't get overly excited by things. However, if someone comes in with a duck, I'm always like, yay, a duck. And I used to like always just get super excited. I love like there's certain species of animals that I just particularly get excited, and ducks are definitely one of them. So I don't know. I think, how old are they now? They're coming up to 3. So like 3 years ago, I thought, oh, you know what? I can afford to put a run in my garden and I'll just get some ducks. And so I researched for a while and thought, what breed of duck should I get? What's going to be best for me? So I thought runner ducks, because they're just so hilarious, would be so fun to have. So I initially actually tried to do some hatching, but the eggs didn't work. I think because they came in the post, they just got scrambled. So I bought some from somebody close by, and I didn't actually plan to have a bachelor flock because I kind of didn't really think about it. I just bought like 3 little babies, and if I have some eggs, great. If I don't, it doesn't matter. And then by the time they hit like 10 weeks or whatever, I knew they were boys. But then started realizing that actually the boys get such a rough time, and people don't want them, and they dump them or eat them or whatever. So actually, I'm really happy that I've got boys, because it means they don't have that fate and they can have the best life ever. So yeah, I didn't actually set out to have boys, but now I do. I'm probably just going to keep rescuing boys because no one wants them.
Yeah, I recognize myself in your story, and exactly. I bought 3 boys, and it's the same thing. I have seen some posts before about bachelor flocks, so I knew when I realized that there were boys that they could coexist, but no one told you about the stress of mating season. No one could prepare you for that.
Yeah, it seems to have gone on for ages this year. Only now am I feeling a little less like my ankles are going to be bitten. So,
Aww.
yeah, I think the weather's been really bad this year, and they've been really confused about what time is it. I don't understand.
That's happened to my flock as well. I started out the same way as you. I bought a few ducklings and hoped for the best, and it turned out to be just boys.
I'm good with that. A lot of people would be really sad and they'd try and get rid of 2 and get some girls, and no,
never.
No.
They are my precious. I even have statues of them. They are my original 3, so they are the best.
My boys will always be in my original 3, so I kind of picked them so that they were different colours as well. So if anyone who like follows my Instagram, they like, one's fawn and white, and then one's black, and one's kind of a mallardy colour. But I think he's supposed to be silver, but he's not perfect. But I don't really care.
And your orchard, do you pronounce it like that?
What's that?
Yeah, he won that the show, internet show for best breed in the runner class.
Oh yeah, I was Oka.
Yeah, her fawn runner,
Fawn and white,
yes, fawn and white. But did you have any other birds? I know you have spoken about some other ducks you had before.
So the wild ducks, when I was really young, we did look after some ducks, and when they were babies and stuff. But since then, until like I think it was COVID time during the pandemic, obviously not much was open, and a friend of a friend found some ducklings just in the middle of a housing estate, and I said, oh no, we can look after them, it's fine. So there were 2 mallards, and they were also 2 boys. But we looked after them until they were at kind of fledgling age, and then released them. But one of them was quite lame, so we had to do some X-rays, and we did some blood work on her, or him, should I say. But they were called Betty and Jeffrey, and I still call Betty's a boy. I don't care that he's a boy. He's just like, they were called Betty and Jeffrey before we got them, because a couple of children were looking after them overnight. But yeah, we had those, and I kind of I've on and off looked at. I often rehab just random bits of wildlife. So this last few weeks, I've had a mouse that had fallen out of a nest that we hand reared, and she's going to be released. So we have like things every now and then, but I also kind of look after people's pets. I've had a friend's parrot to stay.
A turtle? I saw you had a turtle.
Yeah, I've got tortoises staying this summer, on and off. So I look after people's pets on and off.
That's so awesome.
I also like have my own job to do. So.
It sounds like you are quite busy.
I'm always busy. I'm always doing all sorts of stuff for my like.
That's why we appreciate your time. But what do you feel like is the common misunderstanding about both drakes and ducks in general in the UK, to compare a bit with Sweden? How do people view ducks in the UK?
I think people don't think about them much past being a farmyard animal. They don't really. You hear quite a lot of people having chickens. So we have a lot of ex-battery hens that people will rescue quite a lot. And I hear a lot more about chickens in backyards than I do about ducks. And I think people just think ducks are just farmyard animals, or they're at the river and you like see them in the wild. And I don't think that many people have ducks as I like thought they would, because I think they're like really charismatic, like great pets to have, and people don't. Some people do. I think the biggest misconception is that you can have them as backyard pets, and that they don't need a massive enclosure. Well, I mean, the boys have got a decent enclosure, but as in they don't need like acres and acres of land to like roam around. They can be in a backyard. But yeah, I just don't think people have them as much as I would have thought.
No.
I think the biggest misunderstanding is that people try to compare chickens and ducks, and usually it's like comparing dogs and cats.
Yeah,
that you can't compare them because they are 2 different kind of species and animal in whole. I usually say that chickens are more for therapy and calmness, and I go to the ducks when you want joy and laughter.
Yeah, totally joy. Ducks are like ducks are like puppies that never grows up. I can sit and watch them for hours.
Yeah, me too. They're so funny, and I think I love the fact that the runner ducks are so goofy, and they just run around, and then Ochre especially. The fawn and white one, we always say that he's got no brain cells because he's just so silly. He just like runs around, doesn't really know what's going on. The other 2 are like fighting, or I don't know, doing whatever, and he's just doing his own thing. Like, oh, I'm just gonna go forage over here. It's just
his job is to entertain everyone.
Yeah. So cute.
Oh, that's awesome.
That made me think of another question. Have you recognized any type of pecking order in your flock? Because we discussed some that the chickens have a more strict pecking order, while the ducks feels like their pecking order ain't that strict.
I don't think it's super strict, no. I think Ochre doesn't understand, so he just kind of floats around and is like, okay. Whereas the other 2, I think Inky, who is the naughtiest one, the black one, he is always biting me, he's always chasing me, he's always just being generally naughty. I think he thinks he's in charge, but actually Alba's in charge, and he tells him off all the time. And Alba will tell Ochre off as well, like, no, you've come too close, these are my peas. Go away, like, I don't know. So he also Alba won't let Inky in the pool. So there's definitely a pecking order that goes, but they're also, I think, as breeding season calms down, they're like, yeah, whatever.
They toss it out the window and start over.
I recognize that I've now only my 2 boys that are the highest in the pecking order are the ones that are allowed to bathe. The other 2, they are not allowed in the pool at all, and that makes it really hard because like Harry, he's losing his feathers around his eyes, even though that I'm allowing. He has access to bath, but he refuses to bathe anyway.
Doesn't want to risk it.
But
my flock is a bit different because I have the ones that are in charge. They go to the pool first, but when they are finished, the others that are lower, it's their turn to bath, and everyone is bathing. So
mine's like different again because Alba and Inky are like the 2 that are always fighting and they're always trying to fight for pecking order. But Alba won't let Inky in the pool, so Inky never ever goes at the minute. He never ever goes in the big pool. Whereas he lets Oka in, even though Oka's like Mr. Dim, doesn't really know what's going on. Like, he just lets him there and
have a free card.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's like my I have a duck that's blind and has been since he was a fledgling. So he has a free card for everything. So if there is like a serious situation between 2 ducks and then just the blind one comes along, they're like, oh, it's just him, so never mind.
That's probably what it is, because Oka's just stupid. They're just like, oh, it's just him, just let him do what he wants.
Talking about Inky, I when people talk about Drake aggression, I usually show your videos with the Inky and showing how he behaves and showing that this is completely natural behavior for mating season. Do you have any special trick with Inky to get him to calm down?
No, I don't actually really do know is the answer. There's not really anything that I seem to be able to do to stop him doing stuff. I know a lot of people say pick them up and like just like then it will show them that you're in charge, but to be honest, ducks don't pick each other up, so how will that's not really doing much apart from just stopping him bite me. I just make sure that I'm wearing socks and that sometimes I give him my shoes. I'm like, here, have my shoes.
What does he do to your shoes then?
He bites them and just pretends to mate them. So
I wish my boys would do that.
But he's normally like grabbing my trousers or at my ankles, or if I'm trying to do something like they're bedding or whatever, he'll run up to me and bite my hands and arms. So, but it's completely normal, and I think people who have ducks, they're really quick to be like, no, I can't deal with this behavior, and they have to get rid of them. But it's not their fault. It's completely not their fault. They're just the way they are.
This is too common in Sweden. We see every day people that are like, oh, this duck is so mean and we can't keep him, and I'm like, oh god, what are we gonna do?
And they don't realize that if they toss this Drake aside, they will get the exact same issue next year when the next Drake, to understand Drake behavior. And like you said, it's only temporary, and just to go with the flow and let them behave like they do. And I usually say that drakes don't really know why they get that much hormone surge during mating season, and they don't know how to express their feelings. They just hump everything they see.
I talk to people about wild ducks, and I don't think people understand, because they after a while they hate it, and I'm like, but it's not their fault. Like mallards, they'll really aggressively mate the females, and they'll like gang rape them, but that's kind of just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just nature. And the females are just as bad, because I see them flirting with the boys. They're doing all their little flirty behaviors.
Yeah, they like that. If some really do, and I try to explain to people that it's not like it's romantic and foreplay and stuff like that. That's not natural for them.
It surprises me that both the ducks and chickens have survived with the type of mating rituals that they have. It's so gruesome and brutal. But for a question, what do you think is the common mistake people make with their pet ducks in the UK? What do you see as a vet tech nurse in groups and locally and such like that?
I think the two main issues that we see in ducks when I do see them are predator protection. So people think that in the daytime it's fine, nothing's going to come in the garden, there'll be no foxes or anything like that. Our main predator in the UK are foxes more than anything. We don't really have many birds of prey that will take off in the way of like ducks. So I think people think that it's okay to just let them free roam in the garden without any kind of protection. So we do see a lot of fox attacks, and I think it's worse in London because the foxes there are really tame and they don't really care when they're out in the day. So I don't get them much in the daytime here, but I still will not let the boys out without my attention. And I think the second problem that we see are foot issues. So especially with your heavy breeds like Pekins and things like that, people will have them and they won't provide them enough swimming opportunities, or they'll be on hard flooring, and because they're so heavy and because they're not really bred to be pet animals, it's sad because they're bred to be meat birds. They're just not made for kind of living a long time and having all that pressure through their feet. So we do see foot issues, and then we do occasionally see metal toxicity, so they eat bits of metal or there's metal contamination somewhere. But we see more of that in parrots. That's really, really common in parrots. So they eat little bits of metal or things like that and they get really poorly. But I think the most common misconception for any kind of backyard poultry is making sure that they're kept safe, and people don't always.
I've seen your yard looks like they have really high wooden fences, and you still get foxes. Do they jump above, or do they dig?
No, they jump above. I've seen them on 7-foot fences. They will jump 7 foot up a fence and be standing on the top of it. At night time, I've seen them up on the fences. And I think people think, oh, it's just a tiny fox. It's like the size of, I don't know, a small dog. And it won't ever get up there, but they do. They get over the fences. I haven't actually had them in the garden for weeks, but I had a period about a month or so ago where they were just in and out, and one of them brought their babies through, and so people think that they won't get in. They do.
Wow, I didn't know they could jump that high. Wow.
I usually say that it's the reason that we say it's smart as a fox, because foxes are really, really smart. They will figure out a way. I have electric fencing around my yard, but I still expect, if we had more foxes, I would expect it one day for a fox to figure out to get past that electric fencing.
Yeah, it always scares me.
You should not really underestimate these kind of animals. I had only problem we have here are hawks. I had 2 hawk attacks on my boys, and I think the only reason because they survived is because they fight against it. That due to their wingspan, the hawk couldn't lift them up.
Yeah, a lot of birds
we have plenty of predators here where I live. So we have eagle, wolves, foxes, and lynx.
Yeah.
So mine aren't getting out unless I'm home.
Yeah.
So they have dog pens, I think it's called. So.
I have my geese protecting my ducks, and I know you have been curious about geese as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having some geese. I just think my neighbourhood will probably hate it. Geese.
They can get some geese too.
People are so scared of geese. It just makes me laugh. Yeah.
I was at first, and Michelle made me hold one of her geese, and I was deadly afraid. But then I was okay, this one wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
He's kind of soft and he's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And then I got myself 2 own, so.
Aw. Yeah, it's really funny. Like if we get a swan at work, every now and then we might get a swan in, and everyone's so like scared of them, and I'm like, no, it's honestly they're fine. Just
They
because
are
they're
one
so
of the
big,
most beautiful birds ever.
they really are. They're beautiful.
Yeah. Oh,
But
God.
to one curious question, how does the feed situation look for poultry and ducks in the UK? Because I know we have a big issue getting a feed that are specific for waterfowl.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of options in the UK?
We do have a decent amount of options. There's less options for just drakes only. So we have a lot of like layer pellets for the chickens, which is okay to be feeding laying hen ducks as well. But we also have like several different companies that make different ones. I used to feed an ornamental poultry pellet, which was made by like a smallholder range thing, and they've just discontinued it, which is really annoying because I thought it was like perfect for just birds that were like either for just showing or just looking nice in the garden, which is what they are.
Yeah.
But I have since just moved them on to just a general waterfowl pellet. If there is any that comes out, that'd be great. I would really like to feed them like Missouri waterfowl pellets.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, they're starting. Missouri stuff is starting to be able to be brought to the UK, but at the minute it's really expensive. So I'm hoping as time goes on we'll be able to have it more, because we talk about it at work, because I think they offer like the best pellets for hedgehogs, for example, that we sometimes will talk about hedgehog like care. So if we can get them in the UK a bit more, that would be great. But things are starting to get better, definitely, and that it's better than you guys for sure.
Yeah,
We only
I
have
know.
like chicken food, and
Yeah, well,
I have to ship. I have to ship my pellets from Germany.
Yeah, she started on the same feed as I have. We order through Amazon Germany to get waterfowl specific food. To get, I do reading about niacin deficiencies and stuff like that. I do really want a food specific for ducks, but another issue is that all the feed has such a high protein content, and even if you have females, I have read that they should only be allowed like 12%.
I think it's something like that. I think it's not so bad now that they're adults. But yeah, I think quite a lot of feed in general is just marketed towards the ducks being bred for meat or for eggs. And it's not really marketed for animals that are just being looked after as pets, which is a bit sad, but I guess that's where the money is.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I feed them a little bit. I feed them just whole wheat sometimes in their water, so they can like dive for it, fish it out. But then when they're going through, when it's really really cold, or like now they're going through their molt, then I'll give them a little bit of extra corn, even though it's kind of junk food. It just gives them a little bit of extra nutrients while they're making new feathers, or while it's like -10 out there.
Yeah, okay.
But I hope really that Missouri comes to England, because I know if you guys get it in England, most likely it will come on Amazon UK, and then it will be easier for us to order rather than order from the States. I don't even think we can order from Missouri from the States.
That's where it's made. But we've been talking about parrot food, because parrots need to be on like a pelleted food, and Missouri again make pellets for parrots, and we're trying to get hold of lots of different things like that. And there is a website that does them, but the shipping is quite expensive, and I'm like, can I really afford to ship like that over? It's just it sounds like mean, but
it's not working for me in the long run, because I have like 20 plus ducks. So
both her and me, we dilute our feed a lot, because the expenses for the feed would be so high if we didn't dilute it, and also to get that protein content down a bit. But another curious question, we see a lot of problem with niacin deficiency in Sweden. Is this something you see in the UK as well?
No, it's not really something we see overly, because if people are feeding the correct food, you can get like starter foods and like growing foods and things like that, generally without a problem. So if you're raising ducklings now or things like that, you generally have got enough, and you can put things like brewer's yeast in if you want to, but we don't tend to have a problem because they're already added in. So it's not really something we see in the UK, no.
I think this is that you guys have a lot of more waterfowl options. People buy the chicken feed and don't read up on the fact that ducks need double amount of niacin, and 1 year later they asking the question, why can't my duck walk? And usually it's because of a niacin deficiency. We have started to talk a lot about supplementing their diet with the B vitamins and how important this is.
We
treat them like hens and stuff like that. Same food, same treatment.
We can actually get waterfowl pellets just for wild ducks, which I buy anyway. So you can just get these floating pellets, which the boys would probably be fine on, but I don't choose to feed them that, which you can just feed to wild ducks and swans out like on the lakes and the rivers, which is what I do. So I buy like, I don't know, 15 kilos of wild duck food because I like to go and feed the wild ducks.
Is there a problem that people that aren't so invested in ducks go feed the wild ducks bread?
Lots and lots and lots of bread being fed. And it's really hard because you go on social media and you get all of this conflicting like opinions on the fact of you shouldn't be feeding bread, but then the idea was people stopped feeding animals altogether and then they started starving in the winter. So like, if you're not going to feed them, just feed them some bread in the winter. But I'm still on the fence of, you should be like, why can't you just get a pack of peas? It's cheaper than buying as cheap as buying some bread. You don't need to feed them bread. Like, I don't know, I think it's ingrained into our social psyche. Like, parents will have fed bread with you when you were like 2 years old, and then you feed bread with your children, and then they feed bread. It just keeps going, and people don't realize there's signs everywhere saying don't feed bread, but people still feed it.
But talking about the wild ducks made me think a bit about the avian influenza. I know, like us, you guys have it's a lot calmer this year, but you had a hellish last year. It was a long quarantine period for you guys.
Yeah, it was really bad, and I chose to get ducks the year that the 2 years that were the worst are the last 2 years, and I chose to get ducklings the year that it was really bad. Why did I do this? But now the government have made it compulsory that you have to register all of your birds, no matter how many you have. So I've registered the boys now, and they're registered with the government, but still makes me a bit. People were very distrusting of the government and very distrusting of the whole thing. But yeah, this year has been better. But I felt so sorry for them last year because although they've got a really nice run, like I have to cover it all in tarpaulin and cover it all round so that nothing can get in, and have to foot dip, and it's just a nightmare. And when they're in breeding season, and it's like January, February, and they're going absolutely mental in the run, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't let you out. I mean, I brought them in the house a little bit, but it's not the same. Like, I pick them up and walk them into the house, but no, they need to be like.
I think you and me got the boys the same year, because 2020 for us, I think, or it was 2021, we had over 200 cases, and this was the time my boys were still this teenage stage, and they had never free range, and just wanting them to let them outside for that first time. I'm glad that we really have it under control here now, but like I said, we implemented this with registering your birds as well, and I think this really what made the difference to keep avian influenza under control, that it really worked for us, and we only have to register our coops, we don't register our birds, and it's like £1 a year or something like that.
We don't have to
Barely.
I think the good thing is although I hate it, and I kind of I understand why people get stressed about it. I think if you're doing biosecurity properly, then there should be no reason to worry. There are people that I've heard of, especially in the south. They had quite a bad, like the bad time in Cornwall, and they did like in Lincolnshire and stuff. But I've heard of people who have had. I think I told someone I'd runner ducks, and they said, "Oh, my friend had runner ducks, but they all died of avian influenza like last year." And I was like, "Oh, that's really sad." And she's like, "Yeah, they were all just free ranging." I'm like, "Well, that's why then you're in a really high risk area, and you let them out without any biosecurity." And then they all died of avian influenza. Like, I kind of
No shit.
It's like I kind of don't have any sympathy if you're not gonna try and like make sure that you reduce the risks of it happening.
But that's kind of my same. I have a neighbor with chickens, and she doesn't have a run for her chickens. And when we have this big lockdown with avian influenza, she let her free range. And I know if she would have a case of avian influenza, they would come and kill my birds as well, because we are that close to each other. So she doesn't really think about my birds as well. So like you said, you should really follow for the security of everyone.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's very common here in Sweden as well that you just free range. You don't think about the risks of the avian influenza or even predators. You just let them out and say, it's like you said, it's daytime. It's okay.
Yeah.
No problem. But for another completely different question that we usually ask more highly educated people, what do you think about special need birds?
I think it really varies from one like to another. So I don't think it's a one size fits all that all special needs birds should stay alive and all special needs birds should be put to sleep. I think they are very individual. I think if you've got like you have a blind duck. Okay, it's always been blind. It doesn't know any different. It's got other companions. I'm sure it lives an absolutely amazing life. No problem with that. I think the problem that I have is when ducks have been living a normal life for a long period of time and then maybe they lose a leg or more than that, and then everything is kind of they've known to be running about in their like out on the land, and then suddenly they can't do that, and now they're stuck indoors and not able to walk at all. Sometimes I'm a bit on the fence about maybe it's not fair that they can't do what they want to do. In the UK, and I think you said before, we have the 5 freedoms for an Animal Welfare Act, which means that they need to be free of pain and stress, and then they need to be provided with the correct diet, free of disease, and oh my god, I should know this. And like make sure like you just basically need to make sure they are able to do normal things and behave normally. And I think if an animal can't do that, then it's really important that you question whether it is right or wrong to keep them alive. But I think it isn't a one size fits all. I think it's very individual, and it also depends on the owner as well. We've had people who, not just ducks, we see all sorts of species with a lot of conditions where you think, is this really fair that they should be like keeping going? But if you've got a really good owner who's really diligent and is willing to put the effort in, it's not quite so bad. But some owners don't realize the amount of work it takes to have a really disabled pet, because they'll need more cleaning, they need more medicating, they need physiotherapy, they like
that's a full-time job.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. And sometimes some animals, like I used to be dead against dogs in wheelchairs. I used to think, oh my god, no, like why do you put a dog in a wheelchair? But I have seen really happy dogs in wheelchairs. So I think it's really individual. And like I've had so many pets over the years, I think some of them would be fine, they'd be like happy like pottering around like a disabled animal, and others I think absolutely not. Like I have a lot of guinea pigs, and I kind of tailor my care of them depending on what their personality's like. If they're not very tame and they don't really like being handled, then I kind of cut things short sooner than I do with ones that are a bit more like tame and really happy to be handled and just want to be with you all the time. So yeah, it's not a one size fits all question answer thing, but if that makes sense.
That's
Yeah,
better.
yeah, it makes totally sense. It's like my Vanessa that got blind at 1 year old, and I know she can free range, but she prefers to stay in the run where she feels safe, and she is happy. I notice she makes happy purrs. She eats, she drinks, she lays, or not anymore, but
She's totally different from my duck because he wants to be in the middle of everything.
Everything, yeah.
He's
But he's like, he was like that, you said, from when he was really young, so he didn't really know any different.
He got that when he got his eye infections, and because of the lack of good veterinarians where I live, it turned out to be so severe that he got scars on his eyes. But he was a few months at least when he got this.
You can probably see some light if it's just scarring. I'm sure you can see shadows and stuff, maybe.
Yeah, I think he does, because sometimes he can evade me like God knows what. So he sees something, but mostly he's blind because he can walk into a wall and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So light and darkness, I think he can see.
I think owners know their pets better as well, because sometimes in the veterinary profession, we're often quite pro euthanasia, and I don't have a problem with it because it's not a bad welfare thing to put an animal to sleep. But I think owners sometimes know their pets more than we do. So they see them every day, they know what they're like, they understand their behavior and their personality. And at the vets, they're completely different. You might have a dog that turns up that's really aggressive and you can't handle, and you have to muzzle it and it's trying to bite you. But when it's at home, it's completely different and such a happy animal. I think as a veterinary profession, most people are quite good, but occasionally people can make judgments over what the animal's like in the practice is nothing like what they're like at home at all.
No.
Both me and Emily have had cases when I took my cat to the veterinary office 2 weeks ago, and we got accused that she was going to report us because he was 2 kilos overweight. Just
he
2
was
kilos.
obese, but he isn't.
Yeah.
So we have to go to regular checks to weigh, to make sure that he loses weight. But my point being that you guys have how you say, obligations to report animal welfare cases also. And like my veterinarian, she is comfortable seeing Vanessa because I come on regular checks. She follows her and makes sure that she gets the care she needs.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss that, to do regular checkups, even if it's a special needs bird.
Yeah, it's very hard because we see people and we're really worried about a pet's welfare, and we try and get them to come back in and then they don't. But we also don't have the resources to constantly chase people with sometimes you don't. And I think one of the worst ones that, in recent times, I had a foster dog who had been beaten by his owner, and they couldn't prove it was him, so he went back to his owner, and then a month later he came back with another broken leg, and in the end the RSPCA seized him off the owner, and he came to me to have his he had 2 back broken legs that we had to help heal. And it's really hard because if he had been taken away from the owner in the first place, he would have had 1 less broken bone than he had, but he had multiple. But it's so hard to prove it's just so hard, and you get in these kind of legal, it just becomes a legal nightmare that when do you step in and when do you call the police and the RSPCA to take animals away. But when they're just overweight, like your cat, if your cat's overweight, there's just making sure that, I don't know, you're making sure that they're losing weight, that's fine. In the UK, we're a lot more lenient about that kind of thing because we do see a lot of really bad physical abuse at times. So
I talked with you about the jealousy of you guys having the RSPCA. Do RSPCA handle ducks and chickens and stuff like that also? Or they do that?
Yeah, they'll do any species whatsoever, but you have to they're really hard. They're so they haven't got enough of them, basically, for the amount, the resources that they need to do stuff. There's just not enough, and they get a lot of stick back from the general public saying, I rang about this like bird in my garden or about this swan or whatever, but they sometimes don't have the people to go out to them, because those people are going out to someone in the neighborhood who's left their dog tied up in the yard, or there's a horse that's been left in a field that's starving, and they've gone to that, but there's just not enough of them to be able to deal with it, and it's really hard. And then they have to get the police involved to seize an animal. They don't have the legal rights to walk into a house and take an animal. They have to call the police. So it's just it's a bit of a mess. But
it sounds like a very difficult job.
It is a very difficult job, and sometimes they have to constantly go in for welfare checks. So someone will call and say, I'm really worried about this animal, and they'll go in and talk to the owner and find out that actually that owner's not coping, and they have to support the owner as well. So and then you just get people who waste their time.
I saw the program, the Dog Rescuers, I believe it's called, and I saw their hard work, and we really would need some kind of authority like that in Sweden. Because we see a lot, especially in poultry, that people treat poultry like objects rather than pets.
Like farm animals.
I think this is the problem in veterinary medicine here, is they're still classed as food producing animals, and there's a lot of law regarding what medications we can send them with and what you can do with them. We're not even allowed to officially feed them food from our fridge. Like chickens, you're not allowed to feed food from the fridge.
We have the same thing. You can't you can't feed anything that had the risk to being in contact with meat. It's our law.
It's madness. And there's we shouldn't be feeding like mealworms that are from another country. But I feed the boys mealworms because I'm never going to eat them ever. No way. But honestly, there's so many laws around it, and when we have to prescribe drugs for them, there's all this meat and egg withdrawal periods and what drugs we can use and can't use. And but I agree that a lot of people do just treat the animals like just not like pets.
It's kind of a good example that you mentioned that with the egg withdrawal, because I asked you about fenbenzalol, I believe it's pronounced, and in Sweden it's a lifetime quarantine if you use this on the chickens, because there are no studies made. But in like the UK, the same thing, it's 0 days. It's but just because they haven't tried the Swedish version of it on the chickens, you can't say that it would. It's so silly.
It's insane.
But do you have any more questions, Emily?
No, I'm completely. I'm like speechless of everything. It sounds like it's pretty the same in UK and Sweden if you compare the two countries, and the information or lack of information, depending on what, for just ducks and the laws for them.
And I think a lot of people don't realise. We had during avian influenza, this is just an example, where someone brought a chicken in with respiratory signs, and she it was during lockdown. She was letting it out. It was living on its own for a start. She was letting it out in the garden, like unattended, and it was avian influenza. And then when she came in with this chicken with signs of like just respiratory issues, we told her we need to just call the government and just check that they don't think this is avian influenza. Can you please wait outside? And they went absolutely mental at us, like it was all our fault, and like I don't understand what the problem is. And I'm like, but clearly you just don't understand the law of they should be in flock down. They shouldn't be on their own. You should have predator protection. People are just not educated, and then we get the brunt of it because it's all our fault. That
my god!
It's madness.
Yeah, but that's the reason we wanted to start this podcast, because it's another podcast about poultry in Sweden, or mostly chickens, but they talk about chickens in a farm way, and we felt the demand that it's needed to talk about, it's time to talk about poultry like pets, that it's the demand, more people wanting to have them as pets. And perhaps you can shed some words about having bachelors as pets, because I know they get a lot more affectionate rather if they would have females.
I think you have to be a patient kind of person to have a bachelor flock, because I think a lot of people would not, and especially if you have children, people just don't like it. But I think if you have the space and you want a really like some fun animals to just entertain you, definitely I'd always say have a bachelor flock. If you don't care about getting eggs and you can put up with just naughty behavior, which I kind of find amusing more than anything, then honestly just make sure you wear shoes and socks and a pair of wellies, you'll be fine. But honestly, it's not his fault. I think if you love animals and you want a backyard flock, I would get a bachelor flock for sure, because as long as you're understanding about that's their hormones and it's not their fault, I just think they're so much fun to have around.
Yeah, you can see past that. I mean, they are so affectionate.
Yeah, and for example, a meal that have 4 and you have like 3, that's 7 boys that lives have been saved, because most likely they would have been put down, because I don't see many drakes living past 1 year old. Not many that have
we have a lot dumped at local rivers and lakes, and if I collected them all up I would have a lot. But
we support you.
Fortunately, like our local lakes, they're fed really well, and actually it doesn't get super cold, and there's loads of places they can hide from predators. And whilst I'd love to collect them all, I actually think they're relatively safe in that like environment there. But if somebody dumped a new one and it looked unwell or it like was injured, I'd definitely collect it and bring it home and stuff. But honestly, there's a lot of dump ducks about, but I think it's not as bad as America, and I think our temperatures of our climate mean that, and a lot of people feed ducks, I mean that they can actually survive a bit better. I don't agree with it at all.
No.
I don't think people should do it, but I just can't. I don't have the resources to keep them or take them all.
No.
But I do think they can sometimes do okay. But I still don't agree with it. But people dump them all the time. It's so sad.
It's not idyllic, but it works.
Yeah.
Most of my sorry, Michelle. Most of my drakes are rescues that otherwise would have been culled or dumped.
I would definitely rescue some more. I nearly had a Peking duck a couple of months ago, but he. Someone was going to rehome their drake, and I was going to take him, but actually they decided they were going to make their own bachelor flock. So I was like, yes, they're going to go. Boys.
You're spreading the word.
I was like,
that's good.
He'd lost his female companion, and then he got attacked by a fox, and then she was like, oh, I don't know whether I can keep ducks anymore, but then found a rescue, so she's going to like take on some boys, which is great.
That's amazing, and to advocate it. I always try to advocate for having boys, and I do start to see more of a trend, more going for just having bachelor flocks. And I usually send them like I showed you, I have written a guide of what you should think by having boys, and mostly it's just space and understanding their hormones. And be prepared that you have not how to separate yours yet. I have to separate my boys, because Harry gets this nasty wound along his neck else.
Sometimes when they're being extra silly, I put like Inky away. Inky's the worst. So occasionally they'll be out in the garden and they just will not stop it. And I'll put Inky like just in the run and the others out just for like an hour, just to break up the like silliness, and then he gets back out again. So, but permanently I never have to at the moment. I've never had.
I told Emily that your boys seem so well behaved compared to mine.
They're not always. Sometimes they're so silly. It just I'm hoping that they're going to start calming down now that the summer's out, and like hopefully, and they're molting now, so they're like not as happy. I'm hoping they're now just going to calm down, and I also hope as they age they will actually calm down and their hormones will slowly like diminish a little bit.
I vote for that because I had one that was similar to your funny duck.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I have one named August,
Yeah.
and he's like half a brain cell, and he's landing it out all the time.
Yeah.
He was the worst his first year. And he is the brother to the blind one.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's the only reason I'm keeping you.
Yeah.
That's what I said to him because I was so fed up with him. So, but he calmed down. He's 5 years old now, and he is completely calm.
Yeah, I'm hoping that as they age, they will calm down. And the good thing about having bachelors is they don't get all the egg problems, and they hopefully like live a little bit longer, so you have them for longer and that kind of thing. So it's always nice to think that, oh, actually, although they're probably going to do something stupid every year, I'm like, please don't break a wing, please don't break your leg, like stop, because they're literally throwing themselves around. I'm waiting for the year when I've like someone's broken something. But other than that, I'm happy that they're not going to get egg laying problems, which hopefully.
Yeah. But that's one curious question. What do you, your laws say about this implant that stop egg laying? Because I know in the States they have harder laws how to use this implant on farm animals.
No, we do it all the time. We use them a lot. And we will put them in chickens and ducks and put them in parrots a lot as well. We put them in a lot of different species. So they're now licensed to use in ferrets, so as a contraceptive in ferrets. So we use them a lot, and I think it's all off license. So we have like the law says that we can use drugs off the license system, providing that we have a like reason to do it. So, but I think the egg withdrawal period for the implant is lifetime, so you're never allowed to ever eat the eggs from if once you start laying again, you're not allowed to like eat the eggs at all. So
yeah, but like you said, the boys are usually a lot healthier. Or the only issue I have had is some limping and an eye infection. But like you said, they are very prone to
just being silly.
Yeah, that they don't hurt themselves more often. Like you saw, my boys escaped a lot this end of this winter, and they walked to the neighbor's yard, and she has aggressive dogs, and like, oh, I'm so lucky that her dogs was not out.
Suicide ducks.
Oh God, Inky was like limping a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, what have you done? And like he was really like lame, and I was worried I was going to have to take him to work, but actually he was fine. But I'm just waiting for them to hurt themselves because they're just so silly, just constantly silly.
Do you feel more comfortable as an owner with the training experience you have as a vet nurse?
Yeah,
you have more experience.
Yeah, I'm quite happy that I can deal with a lot of things at home. So if, for example, one broke their wing, I could easily put it in a proper wing wrap and wrap it so that it was like where it should be, and then be able to go to the vets. And I could make sure after I've spoken to one of the vets, I could make sure that I could give them pain relief, and then just make sure they're comfortable. And I'm comfortable with medicating and crop feeding and all of that stuff. And if they're always bashing their feet, and they sometimes have cuts on their feet, so I can put like antibiotic creams and things on it and that kind of stuff. So I'm really happy with doing all the basics, but I still have to pay for my veterinary care, so it's still going to cost me a fortune if I have to like do a surgery or whatever on them. So but then
no, it's a personal discount.
No, not really. They're insured, so I've got pet insurance for them, which is really good. So I wanted that because I thought I could probably afford most things, but the one thing I do not want to skimp out on is if they break their leg. I want them to have their leg like properly repaired.
I'm a big advocate because I didn't insure my chickens, and if they would have been insured, Vanessa's glaucoma treatment would have been going on that insurance, but no eye problems are covered in her insurance now.
No.
And we are up. I don't know what the pound is on, but perhaps 120 pound.
Yeah.
Ish. It's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
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 So always
it's 13 crowns, 1 pound.
12,000.
So I think the insurance for the boys, all 3 of them, is about £35. So I guess you times that by 13 and you can have whatever it is in your country.
Yeah,
12,000 Swedish crowns is 898 pounds.
So 35 pounds a month or a year?
A month.
That's pretty hefty compared to our. We have like 50 kroners. Is what could that be? About 5 pounds.
Wait,
each month.
Yeah.
It's 374.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's
No.
like 10 times as much here.
Because what
But
you
you
say,
have better veterinary care.
yeah, you have better avian care. Because my avian vet told me that they get 2 weeks of exotic education for the veterinary education for all that, like rabbits, birds, every 2 weeks.
So we're part of that because I work as part of a university. I have vet students in every single week, and I'm teaching them how to do anything with exotics. So I'm helping do that, and we lecture them all the time. And like I do some handling with them, and we do a lot of exotic pet and like bird and reptile and everything with them. So yeah, it's getting better, but there's still just not enough.
I hope, because I know when Vanessa had, we talked about operating her eye out, you referred your clinic so my vet could call her. But it's because you guys seem to have a lot more avian education, like the States, that there are more research about avian care. And like my vet said, like they refuse to operate on a chicken skull because their eye is so embedded in the skull.
They don't do any surgery on birds here in Sweden.
Yeah. I talked about with another person that talked about operating the reproductive system on her hen, and that it was like, I think my loan on my house cost less than the operation would cost.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's so sad seeing the chickens with all of their reproductive issues, because most of the time we can't do anything about it. They've got tumors or they've got loads of infection, and it's not treatable. You just have to put an implant in. It's really sad.
Yeah, and people, I posted about this implant in a group, and people like, oh, I would never pay that much amount to treat. But would you rather let your bird suffer than pay a silly amount of money for that? And I know that there have started to be some research about having the implant on boys as well to get them to calm down. And I was like, if I could afford it, I would try it on my boys.
At the minute, there's not loads of research behind whether it will help, but I haven't even tried that. I'm happy to let them be. But, I think I find it really sad that quite a lot of things that we see in exotic and avian practice, especially in chickens and things and ducks, is a lot of man-made problems. So we bred chickens to produce too many eggs, and therefore they've ended up with all these reproductive issues because they're just constantly churning out eggs. And then all the foot and leg issues with really heavy ducks is because we've bred them to be so heavy because we want more food from them. So it's just a lot of these things are man-made, and it makes me really sad. And that's why I chose not to get Pekins and to get runners, because they don't fly. they're quite light and they just look like goofy little idiots. So
they don't fly. Tell that to my runners.
You have a special breed, Michelle. They don't know they're Indian runners.
yeah.
But we talked about when you say that health issues, and what we thought starting to research that geese that are to poultry seem so much healthier than ducks and chickens.
Yeah.
And we can't figure out why. Why are they so much healthier than ducks?
They probably have been less intensively bred. I think chickens are the worst because we've had them more bred for like meat and eggs, and then ducks are quite bad, and then geese, I guess people don't have geese that much as commonly for eating or taking their eggs, so they've had them as like guard geese more than anything. And I think probably because we haven't overbred them as much as we have things like chickens, like the amount of breeds of chickens that are out there, it's madness. And then it's just, I don't know. And then you go to like dogs and stuff, and they're really bad. Like the amount of sleepings and dogs. So yeah.
See, having a breed that's like silkies are a perfect example of overbreeding, because they breed for the poofy skulls, and they get brain problems because the brain herniates, and like they get vitamin deficiencies. Crested ducks also. But if you have anything you want to say, we want to take up your time.
No, but I'm happy to like chat again if there's anything specific that you.
We would happy.
If you really want, we would want you to have another interview later on. People will probably have more questions about the bachelor keeper, and I have. I want some more information.
And most likely about the vet nurse, a vet tech profession as well.
Yeah, you could always do one on like just. First aid of things and stuff, and I'm happy to help if you want to.
But people can find you on Instagram, Quackingrunners.
We will link it.
Yes, we will link it. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No, it's fine.
Thank you so much. It was